Hello, Bill here with Bill's History World with Goober the Traveling Bear, and we are at Hampton National Historic Site. And oh my gosh, Goober the Traveling Bear is with me too. Alright, this is the visitor center. They open up at 9. We're going to go in and get our tickets, and then we'll explore the mansion, the grounds. There's a lot to see here. The park is literally huge. So, this is the introduction. Hopefully my weather will hold. It's supposed to be pretty much like it is now, hazy, a little break of sunshine. So, I hope you'll stay with me as we explore the Hampton Mansion in Towson, Maryland, outside of Baltimore. Alright, well, we are getting ready to go inside for a tour. Our weather outside is not so good. Ridley's Pride, the mansion here, and well, it's incredible. Everyone here in the National Park Service, by the way, has been phenomenal. So we are going to be touring the mansion. I'm not sure on video, but we will see what we can do. We have a slight rain coming on right now, so my exterior videos may have some raindrops in them. So we're gonna head over to the ice house while we're waiting to go into the mansion. Okay, this is the ice house with Goober the Traveling Bear, and when I was here with my wife on one of our very first dates, you could actually go inside the ice house. And it's impossible for me to get you a view, but it's a huge tunnel, or a tunnel going down, I'm going to say 20-30 feet. That's the dome to the ice house. And here we go with our plans for the ice house. You'd go down there, and there it is. Having ice in summertime is a real luxury. In the 19th century, storing enough ice to last throughout the summer was a true feat. A large ice house was a sign of wealth. All right, and Goober says he actually got to go down in there, and so did I some 10 years ago. All right, we're gonna walk the grounds, and yes, it is raining. All right, well, we're getting up a little closer to the mansion. We have about 15 minutes for our tour. It's quite impressive, and I don't know what the video part of the tour will be allowed, but we will see. If anything, I can do a recap later on. Right now we're just walking the grounds. The rain is on and off. We're going to pause the camera here and walk and check out these outbuildings. Okay, one of the behind the big house, the Hampton Heights, hundreds of workers labored to make this self-sufficient, profitable estate. There were enslaved and servants who both worked at the mansion. And this was a garage of 1910, a shed, storage shed, privies, which, if you don't know what a privy is, that is your outhouse bathroom. I had someone request to make sure I was hitting the gardens. I was told there's gardens all around the mansion, and got a sundial. Wow. Even with a little bit of mist, I have a little sunlight coming out. Now, there's a path to the cemetery, but I'm going to do that a little bit later. I don't want to miss my guided tour of the interior of the mansion. All right. We're on the other side of the building. So when you come to Hampton Mansion, the Hampton Estate, that is the entrance for the tour. And we'll be going through those doors. And if you're wondering, I am carrying Goober, the traveling bear, in his Scoots carry-all sack, so I don't look like an idiot carrying a stuffed bear around. So, there is a walking path, and I'm going to hit these paths and signs and see what they say. Alright, here we have oranges in January. So, that building there, they were able to grow citrus fruit in there. It is not possible to grow fresh oranges and lemons outside of Maryland, as delicate fruit trees could not survive the winter. But the Ridley family, however, enjoyed the luxury of having fruit on their table all winter long by having this fruit house, where it maintained the temperature and kept the plants from the harsh winters of Maryland. All right, I guess I need to mention that one of my very first dates, if I haven't mentioned this already, with my wife Lisa, was here. We, some close to 10 years ago. All right, here we are at the gardens. Now this is at the, I guess the front back of the house. And I was asked to make sure I walk the gardens. So, the gardens are spectacular. By the way, it's a light rain, not quite a drizzle, but there's no one here, which makes it sort of nice. In the sense that it's early in the morning. All right, I'm going to pause the camera. We'll go walk down and check out the gardens close up. Well, the rain just started heavier as I walked down here to check out the gardens. And unfortunately, we are going to have to retreat to some cover, because this is not just a mist, we now have a pretty good rainfall. You can tell there is how beautiful these gardens are. And as I slowly get wet, I hope you will consider subscribing to my new Bill's History World as I defy the elements to bring you historical videos.
A little more. So the names, and to try to keep this straight, it's very difficult. It's Charles, Charles, John, Charles, John, John. Keep that straight? Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So go ahead and up in here, please. Got a mirror that big at home? No? Nobody? Mm-hmm. So what does this mirror tell you about the Ridgeleys? Rich. Okay. What else?
Vain.
Vain. Okay. There we go. Pardon me?
Showy.
Showy.
Grand.
All right. Grand. Like a 2%. They say 98% of everything you see was actually originally and owned by the Ridgeleys. On some of the first Ridgeley, he's the second owner of the mansion, and he is going to take it over, and he will die in 1829. He's a governor of Maryland during the 1810s, not too long after the War of 1812. Now, one thing I really want you to notice, other than the, and we'll get into that later. All right. So go ahead in the next room, please. Installed it, wrote his name and the date it was installed. But the room would be crowded. And of course, they would have their slaves and then later servants running up and down for food and serving everyone. Now, so we're going to come back and talk about all the pictures here. Now, I do want you to notice that there are 6, and then of course the window treatments as well. All right. Again, it's a reminder to all the visitors who you're visiting with. All right. And so Charles, and actually it's not the first Charles, that's actually the Charles before him actually had that built in 1745. Not too long after the farmhouse is built, about 4 miles north of here, they discover an iron ore deposit. And so that's how they become fabulously wealthy. During the 1750s, they're making cannons and cannonballs and muskets for the British Army. The exception probably would be the silver set. This is basically set for practice. Actually, Charles dies in this room. Now, if you look at the pudding cups, that is real gold that they are turned in. Okay? And they see it's not the porcupine cake back here. A hedgehog is what it actually is. Rebecca didn't make that. Who made it? Servants, slaves.
Sure.
Okay? All right. So come over here. So sparing no expense, the National Park Service went and had this reproduced. I believe it originally was imported from Italy. Also, the blue is Prussian blue. That was very expensive back in the early 1800s. But again, when they found traces of that, they spared no expense to try to make this room look like it would have at one point. Now the door, if you look at the doors here, that's all I think. Your wine glass is never empty, and not only that, if you look with the silver wine chillers over here, the wine is flowing because they're making deals. Now, one of the things I want you to look at the center of the china. What do you see in there? The family crest. So when you're finished your meal, the rich want to remind you who you're sitting with. Charles, who's next? John. The governor and John didn't get along very well. So in his will, the governor emancipates quite a few slaves, but they're all John's slaves. So John has to go out and purchase more after his father died in 1829. Now, another interesting tidbit about John is he has 2 different sons named Charles. One looks just like us. The other one was a little darker. All right. His name is, as I said, is Charles, and his mother is a slave. Now, we don't have too many records of this happening here in Hampton. To my knowledge, it's the only one that we're aware of. Of course, it was not uncommon in other places. Now, Charles and Charles also have another brother named Nelson. So the African American Charles, his mom and her actual husband have a son named Nelson. Nelson is going to join the Union Army, and he's going to become a cook, and he's going to open a very famous restaurant up in Philadelphia. So he has very successful. His other son Charles, when he dies, it is the only of the slaves that are emancipated in his will. But he has a Harvard education, and he's a very successful businessman for the rest of his life. But it's still that, how do I put this? Let's say that really, all I can think of right now is the seedy side of what would have occurred here all over the nation at the time with the enslaved. They like to keep the first name in the family. They like to keep the last name in the family as well. They were actually 5th cousins. They owned the mansion so they both died in 1867, and then it falls to Charles, who will go over that little bit. We're going to come into this room here. I don't know. It could be maybe from three families coming together. It could be like 3 different countries or counties in England. I don't know, but I will look into that.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Are there any pictures of family
it's a great picture. And the guy, Fincher, probably goes, yeah, it is a great picture, but that's not why I came to look at it. Oh, so why don't you come and look at it? Well, I'm interested because the painter is Thomas Sully. And really? So you're looking for that painting? Oh yeah, it's a great painting. We would love to have it. Oh, well, would you be interested if we had a couple more Thomas Sullys? Yeah, absolutely. He goes, well, here's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. All right, well, no, probably not that. All right, and they go, yeah, we'd love to have it. He goes, well, would you be interested in any others? Because we have a Charles Wilson Peale, a Rembrandt Peale, and a Charles Wilson Peale, if you're interested in those. Yeah, we'd love to have it. So they agreed that they will give these to the Portrait Gallery, the National Gallery of Art. They'll get reproductions. And so because of this, I don't know the whole process, but because of this, something called the Avalon Foundation actually buys the property and gives it to the National Park Service. So in October of 1948, John Jr. and his second wife, Louisa, out these doors and go down and live at the farmhouse. And they will live there until John dies in 1959. He's suffering from terminal cancer. He goes behind the mule barn and commits suicide. His second wife, Louisa, dies down at the property in 1978. Until 1979, we take over the rest of the property. Right? So I got to make sure, because I got to be there at 11 o'clock because some of you are on the farm tour. So I have just enough time to show you what everybody's always asking for, the kitchen. All right? When we started these after the pandemic, we were told 15 minutes, like half an hour in here, and just do the rooms, don't go to the kitchen. But everybody wants to see the kitchen. We know, but don't let them see it. All right, so guess what we're gonna do? So after slavery's abolished, and she grows up a little more, she becomes the caretaker of the children. Right? And so she marries another formerly enslaved man, and they live down in Towson, in the Towson area. A lot of the former slaves from this area, including from the Hampton Mansion, set up shops, set up houses down in, I think it's East Towson. So she comes back for a visit, and she comes over and she goes,
Hello, Bill Molyneux here, and I am doing the best I can for talking for Ray. We lost the audio here. We had really bad audio in this hallway. So real quickly, Park Ranger Ray explains the bells above him are tied to ropes or strings, and they would get pulled, and the servants would know which room to go to. And so there is a whole row of bells up there. Now, Ranger Ray also explained about the enslaved inhabitants here, and that around us, I'm going to say roughly 70 tried to escape and go 40 miles to Pennsylvania. And then I think he said around 30 actually made it and did escape. And he told one story where several were near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the slave catchers went there to Pennsylvania to bring them back. And the townspeople came out, defended the escaped slaves on their Freedom Road to freedom, and chased the slave catchers away. And it was a very inspiring story. So of the 70, I think he said around 30 actually made it. The others were brought back. And so there was escapee slaves from enslavement, and many were trying to get to the Freedom Road. I think I summed that up the best that I could. And of course, Ray did a much better job than I did. So I think that's it for what I'm trying to interject. And I'm sorry the audio quality wasn't very good for this.
but she's the main cook for many years. So this was basically after slavery was abolished, they would have a servant's house just outside. And this is called the Octagon House. She dies, I think, in this middle of the room here. Now, it looks pretty big in this. Now, the house doesn't exist anymore. I think it's burned in the 1920s. And they made basically the base of it a garden. And it's out here, and just the other day I went by it and I was shocked by how small it really is. So they did not have the best accommodations. This is what it would have looked like just on the other side of this door. We got all your wood and everything piled up and other things. All right. One thing I do want you to do though. All right. You'll notice there's a trench right here from everybody coming in and going out over the years. Think about how many people came in here. They're stationed in life. Now, when I was doing the tour last year, I also realized there's a small trench right here and right here. You see where the bricks are a little darker. Right, so there's a little trench right here from everybody standing here working on the kitchen. And so I believe, I'm not going to pick them up and not look for a linkage mark, but I believe that some of these are from the Northampton Iron Works. So this is your bread oven. I am not going to open it because if I break it, I bought it and I can't afford it. That's what it looks like inside. All right. Now I learned just as much from visitors as I hope they learn from me. So I'm still doing a tour last winter, and someone asked, well, what is this? And what did I say? I said, I don't know. The very next tour on that same day, someone asked about, I think I said, I don't know quite what this is for. And this one guy, about this tall, blonde, actually from Scandinavia, he goes, I can tell you what it's for. I go, what is it? He goes, that's where they put the bread to cool. He goes, yeah, they still do that in Scandinavia. Like, okay, thanks for telling me. So that's where they would cool the bread. So these are for, this has it's got metal grate, so you can put it, you can have it stand and then get the ashes off. Most ashes are going to be down here. This is where you can put pasta like this for your jams and your jellies, puddings and sauces and gravies. You can cook here. So that's pretty much it. There's only one thing I wanted to point out at the beginning, I forgot. If you'll notice the bar on the door over here. If we walk along, you'll notice that was like that on all the exterior doors except one. And we take that one down because it's a fire escape. In case of a fire in the mansion when we have visitors. Can anybody guess why that bar would be there? Revolt. Right. Okay. Anybody ever hear Nat Turner? All right. So in 1831, a slave person named Nat Turner goes into the mansion and slaughters the family and starts a major slave revolt down in Virginia. And this frightened all the slaveholders, so most of them would put these iron bars on to make sure that they couldn't come in the middle of the night and kill the family in their beds.
Going.
Oh, wow.
So the upstairs is closed to the public for special tours only. Oh, the place is amazing. All right, we have just completed the house tour. We're passing the cemetery for now. I'm heading off to the farm tour, which starts momentarily. So Goober the Traveling Bear and I, and yes, I am carrying Goober in the Scoots travel bag. And I did have one person ask me, they thought it was a puppy. I did not bring Goober out, but they saw some paw or something. And anyhow, we're walking down to the farmhouse. There's 67 acres here, left of some 25,000 acres. And our tour group is very nice. And I'm going to pause the camera here and get to the farmhouse tour.
Oh, it's the stable. There's all the horse stuff.
Oh, here we have the stables as we walk down to the farmhouse.
Some of the finest thoroughbred horses in this country.
All right, well, we are running a little late getting to the farmhouse tour, but I'm hoping we'll be okay. Okay, well, Goober and I made it. And I'm old and chubby, and I walked from the mansion to the farmhouse, and I'm not dead. After my farmhouse tour, I'll hit these outbuildings. And there's the view of the mansion. We are inside the farmhouse. And there's the iron.
Then out here, the building isn't anymore. The dairy, which is that building structure you saw sort of underground. The cow barn, stone slave quarters in the back as well. Lower house.
Okay, push some buttons. There we go. So there's the mansion. Can you point where we are?
We're in the farmhouse, right? Which is, where is the farmhouse?
Well, there's the
Very
stable,
shallow,
longhouse, cow barn. There we go.
Oh,
Okay, hit the button again. There's the lower house. Right there is bright green. Okay.
That would be the bell that would tell the slaves time to work, time to end. After slavery is abolished, a former slave basically takes over as farm manager, and he will be here for about 30 or 40 years. So in 1948, the Ridges moved back into this house, and so you can see this would have looked like that at the time. This is the picture. So for those of you who are on a mansion tour, this is the picture I was talking about when the Ridges actually moved out of the mansion for the final time. Because they couldn't afford the upkeep anymore. Things are falling apart, the carpets are threadbare. There's a letter, the woman who's a party says that the carpets are threadbare. There was not on her property, comes out and tells us, you can't put that there. And well, yeah, we had this whole great big meeting and all this planning, and you could have come to the meeting and said something. So we get that all the time. Now,
And this is the office to the overseer.
oh yes.
And then when slavery is abolished, and all the slaves are no longer slaves, and they start getting paid. And still not treated the best. And here we have the front of the farmhouse. This is where the Ridleys started. And in 1948, they moved back from the mansion and back to here. Our weather has cleared. All right, we got to catch up to the tour. We're going to the enslaved quarters. Okay, we're walking into the enslaved quarters. The park ranger said there would be 10, 12 people or even more, several generations, one fireplace for heat, and everyone would be crammed in here. I'm going to say the room is 12 by 16, and there would be very little room on the second floor, and terrible, terrible conditions. Here we're viewing the back of the farmhouse. The farmhouse itself is quite large. And we got to catch up with the tour. Okay, we're still... the slave quarters are so small, my tour group's in there. I'm going to go back in afterwards into the next rooms. This is the slave village. Let's go read the marker. To our eyes, the stone facades, decorative woodwork that adorns these buildings seems at odds They are used as slave quarters. It was supposed to look like a village. So, quite amazing. Enslaved families were often large. The space was very crowded. Most slaves had few personal possessions. Children likely slept on straw mattresses on the floor. After emancipation, these buildings housed tenant farmers. So much history here. All right, while the tour group's in the one, we'll walk in this one. The New Life of Freedom. Maryland officially ended slavery in November of 1864. Still many challenges ahead, of course, and still challenges now too. But things are getting better. A farmer's home. This room is furnished to suggest a tenant farmer's house in the 20th century. Second-hand furniture, some of it originally used in the mansion, was combined with inexpensive newer pieces in a sparsely furnished setting to reflect the financial instability of a tenant family life. It's not known whether the Wrigleys provided any household goods for the tenant farmers as they had done before the Civil War. And towards the future, education was viewed by many African Americans as a key to a better future. But access and inequality would remain an obstacle for decades to come. By 1872, Maryland's laws required every school district to provide education for African American children. So, all right, we're going to pause the camera here. And here we have a small spring house. Something I like to point out about this site, it's huge, 67 acres, but there's buildings everywhere to explore and learn about history. And I think it's a full day adventure. Okay, we're entering another building. And the enslaved families. What's in a name? Well, there's the roster. And one of the greatest tragedies of America is slavery. Still being discussed and worked on, and racism. But it's things are improving, and right now many of the rangers are not working today because they are at a pride parade in Baltimore. Okay, we were going to do a story that Ranger Ray told me. That is the Ridley Mansion. And when they went to France, they loved the French buildings. So this is the French village, and we're going to go around the corner. She could look from, the trees are sort of in the way of the mansion, but from her bedroom, she could look down from the ridge and see the slave quarters. And they had the slave quarters manufactured to look like a French village. So if you look at the roof, it has a French look that they were trying to get. And so I guess if you think of La Haye Saint, and I'll go around the other side. So here's a closer view of the buildings with their French look. Okay, I'm here with Ranger Ray, and what are your hours here at Hampton?
So we are open for tours Thursday through Sunday. The tours, house tours are at 10, 1, and 3. The garden tour is at 2 o'clock, and the farm side tour is at 2 o'clock. The grounds open at 8 o'clock. The grounds close at 5 o'clock. But people can still walk the area or still can drive in the area until dusk.
Thank you very much, and you gave a wonderful tour, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Okay, we're going to check out the cream of Hampton. The design of this building enabled the Ridleys to produce fine dairy products here for over 150 years. Built into the ground to maintain coolness, this structure is also shaded by low-hanging eaves. Inside, you'll see a natural refrigeration system. Cool water from a nearby spring bubbles to the ground to run through the taps through the surrounding dairy floor. Workers turn the milk tubs of butter into cold. Keep them in cold water to keep them from spoiling. Okay, we're going to go into the dairy manufacturing building. And of course, there's a picture of the village nearby. It's many buildings here, and again they were made to look like a French village. And so let's go down below. We'll pause our camera. Okay, we're heading into the cool dairy room. So there's our spring that flows through the building. Okay. And it is cooler in here. We have an echo. So here's our spring. They would keep the milk in to keep it from spoiling. Pretty interesting when you think about it, the things that people had to do to manufacture, then keep the food safe to eat. All right, well, let's head up back towards the car. All right, this is the view from across the street of the slave quarters and the farmhouse. As you see, we have residential neighborhood right through the park. And there's the mansion itself. Now, Ranger Ray was telling us that on some maps it wasn't called the mansion, it was called the hall. And I'm a good couple hundred yards away from it, and it's huge. Okay, to those of you that are still watching, my weather is awesome. It's cleared up. So, to you that like flowers and gardens, when I tried to video the garden earlier, it started pouring cats and dogs. So we're going to head to the formal gardens and get a minute of that video footage for people like my wife Lisa who love flowers and gardens. I'll pause the camera here. Okay, here we are. And these gardens are stunning. They're much prettier without pouring rain. Now, I'm not a garden person, so I don't know if this is a French garden or an English garden. If Rich Strum was here from Fort Ticonderoga and Cameron, they have their official King's Gardens there. They know all about gardens. Just do a couple snippets of the garden. And All right. All right, I'm going to end this video. I've been here 6 hours. If you come to visit, plan at least better than a half a day or more, especially if you're doing the garden tour, the farm tour, and the house tour. And yes, I dragged Goober the traveling bear through all of this in his Scoots travel bag. So, from the Hampton Mansion, I'm going to edit all this. I hope someone will watch it and like and subscribe and get other people to watch my videos. Stay safe, be kind, be courteous, and visit the Hampton Mansion or Hall, as at one time it was called, near Towson, Maryland, Baltimore. Thank you, everyone.